video, I'm going to walk you through the founder's guide on exactly what are the KPIs that you should be looking for when you hire a new sales rep. What kind of closing rates, how many appointments should they be making, how should they be showing up, how do we manage some of those people if you are about to make some of your first hires as a part of your B2B process. I'm going to walk you through some just very basic KPIs that you should be aware of when you're going through the hiring process for the first time. So if you're in tech, if you're in SaaS, if you're in a B2B service, essentially a B2B arena, this is some rules that I have followed over my career. The first place of when we are looking, though, to make a hire is first you want to look for somebody that actually has 2 years of B2B sales. We do not want to hire new people, especially if this is your first time building out your sales team for your company. It is very, very important that you get somebody in the door that you do not have to train up from the ground up. When we go through the hiring process, we're obviously looking for some form of tangible results. So really good reps do a good job of keeping their history of how they helped companies to grow, whether that was finding new ways in which to get deals to close in a shorter period of time, a book of new business that they brought, and the amount of deal flow that they brought. What we're not looking for, though, that is very important is you're not always looking for somebody who has the connections or the network within your type of business. And that is because, like, we're going to get into that in a minute here, but like your business should be booking the appointments. But what you want to look for is somebody who specifically has at least 2 years experience in a B2B role who can show you that they did some cool, tangible things, that they did a good job of keeping case studies, not only to showcase their worth, okay, but as a part of being a good sales rep for a company, you have to have a good understanding of how can I showcase a record of us doing the very thing that we're promising to do, right? So for your sales reps, they have to be able to know that how to also do that for themselves, but then also be able to communicate that for you, for your company during the sales process. So do be sure to, and then of course, they should be asking lots and lots of questions about your pipeline. So here's the thing. Really, really good reps, they know that they can make a good chunk of money. Like, I'm talking 15 to 20K months is the average of what a really, really good sales rep is looking to make when they come and work for our companies. This means that if they're getting the majority of that from their commissions, which they should be, they are coming in asking lots of questions to understand what is your pipeline. Can they actually make that amount of money by working with your company? Do you have the existing amount of over here? If we look at leads and appointments, do you have that? Are they asking questions like, what are the biggest months? What's the biggest commission check you've ever generated? How are you currently generating your leads? How long does it take you to close? What systems do you use for follow-up? What's expected of me daily? So they should be asking these types of questions. And when they're not, that's a big, big red flag. A, it shows me somebody who probably doesn't have all that much experience. And B, I'm probably not dealing with somebody who has some high goals for themselves, because they would know and understand what good pipeline looks like and whether they have the ability to make that kind of income with your company. So do ensure that they are asking those questions as a part of your sales process. And again, it's a big red flag. I won't make a hire if you don't come in asking some of these questions. We do get a lot of inspiration from Albert Einstein, and I thought that this quote really fit today's topic, which was everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. Ooh, that's a bit of a tongue twister. That goes back up into here into some things, again, of understanding the data that you hold currently that can supply for a new rep, but also what are some of the things, the intangible things that our businesses need to have to ensure that these benchmarks that I'm going to give you today, that you can stand on 2 feet on those benchmarks because you have the systems to support it. So I'm going to break down what essentially that means. Before we go and hire, we want to make sure that our company, ourselves, that we have at least 90 days of consistency where we have new appointments being generated daily, and we can close all offers made to a minimum of a 30%. Now, this must be a channel in which we can increase. So not referrals, not from your network, not face-to-face. Like, you have to be able to apply like a lever to it. You have to be able to, if I increase by X, then I should get more appointments. That is a predictable channel in which to book appointments. So if you're not here, if you haven't had at least 90 days of consistency with the amount of new opportunities that you're pulling into your pipeline each day, and that we have an offer that can close them at a minimum of a 30%, then you're not ready. We're not quite ready for a sales team. So ensure that you have your own company benchmarks like this, because this is what happens here. A lot of the times we do see that when we go to make these hires for sales reps, we instantly have this thought that they're going to instantly increase the amount of pipeline that we have, when the pipeline should be created for them. Your reps are best spent in communication with your prospects, not going out and looking for their own appointments. So yes, we do want 30% of their time, 30% of their calendar doing their own dials, their own appointment setting. But this is coming from existing pipeline. This is coming from deals that they need to follow up on, deals that they are actively working. This is not going out and prospecting to find new business. That is the job of marketing. Because what happens here is when you get on a new sales rep, this is the number one KPI. This is what you came here for today. And this is by the time that they've had 30 live demos, strategies, whatever you want to call it, whether you're a product or a service, you've had 30 opportunities with SQLs, sales qualified leads. You've had 30 times where somebody's come through, they're qualified to buy your product, and the close rate, we've been able to close at least 20% of them by the time they've done that 30 times. And so when a new sales rep does not hit this KPI, they got to go. And here's why. Very, very rarely do bad guys get good in these roles. We want our good guys to only get better. And so as somebody who has run these teams over and over again, and I've made these mistakes and I've kept people on, not only is keeping them on hurting your company, but it's actually hurting them. And sometimes it's not always just specifically tied towards them. It could be the industry that they're in. It could be, there's a lot. There's a lot as to what goes on and why they're not getting those closing rates. But as I started this video with, when we stand on our own 2 feet and we go back up here, and we know that we have a system that's built in. We know we have a way to produce new opportunities, and we have a way in which to close them at a minimum of a 30%. So when we have new hires that come on board, we want to see them closing at a minimum of 20%. But really the standard needs to be at that 30%, because that's something that is a good targeting, good offer, and good messaging when you can close at that 30%. So do pay attention to this. Now, to ensure that, again, we can stand on our 2 feet and that we have the right systems in place to make sure that when we go for a hire, and if we are going to unfortunately let somebody go, it's because you've done really good with your onboarding and training of a new hire. So I'm just going to take you through just super high level what you should be considering for your own organization. Number one, the intake of hiring and that process. You do want to try to automate it as much as possible. You could look for opportunities for reps, especially if you're doing, a Zoom presentation of any kind. You want to see, how do they show up on camera? What do they look like? What do they sound like? Is this going to be a good presenter of my company? But have some ways in which to automate the intake of the amount of resumes that you're in, applications that you get through, and create some additional steps and hoops for them to jump through to show us that this is actually a position that they're really going for. But we look to automate that as much as possible. And then onboarding them, think, when we hire a new hire for, think about when we have somebody new on any of our hires, right? They need access to Slack. They need access to a Google Drive. They need a company email. They'll need access to your CRM. There's going to be things and processes and tools and tech stacks that they're going to need access to. So again, figure out ways to automate that as much as possible. And then you want to have a portal training area, somewhere they can log into, something that's not just a whole bunch of Google Docs or a bunch of Asana tasks. You want a specific back-end training that A, it's very easy for them to start here and finish here. B, you can see how much of that portal that they've actually completed. And it's a place that they can constantly refer back to. It's exactly everything from A to Z, what's covered inside of your sales process. What do your prospects think about? What keeps them up at night? What's the jargon that they use? What are the outcomes that they're looking for? We do want to educate them on the product, but not to the point where they're just spending so much time in just the actual features, more just understanding what makes our human, our prospect, our avatar, what makes our person tick, so that we can properly position our products and services to exactly what they're looking for. But all of these pieces here, they need to be in a sales training portal area. So that you can, as part of your onboarding, you can easily give them access. So even before they start, you can give them access to training. So when they come into you for the first day of work, they already have an idea of exactly what it takes to get a deal closed, from the time that we book this call, they show up, to payment is collected, to now that new client is onboarding. They could have an idea before they even start on day one with you. How to manage the team. You want to have some processes in place. You're going to want to have certain cadence in terms of the meetings schedule that you do with your sales reps. Again, it's depending upon the organization, depending on you, depending on the team. I can't give you a blanket statement, but I will say this, it's probably more than you think because our salespeople, they need help. They need us to keep them up. It's part of the coaching that we do up here, but like keeping them motivated, keeping them on target, helping them figure out exactly what they should be doing that week, how much activity, how they're filling up their CRMs, all of their tracking, all of their data, all of that needs to be a part of the process that you should have as a part of there. It's also really helpful to have some AI call analysis on the actual sales calls that are happening, meaning before we have to make a decision about letting somebody go during this process, by the time that they've had those at least 10 live calls, you should have done some, not only just AI call analysis, but some personal analysis to go through the recordings of their call to ensure that the reason why they're not losing deals is something to do with product knowledge or like easy objections that they can get through. Make sure that you're giving them all the tools that they possibly need. And then, of course, data-driven decision making. By this point, you should have all of your tracking in place. You know exactly how many calls it takes for you to make an offer, and then what are your offer rates. And there's all these brilliant metrics that build into the story that we need to tell that this is working or this is not working. And when we invite new team members into our organizations, that they are making their own right decisions, but that things are happening where it's not affecting our ability to fulfill. So let me give you an example. One of the offers that we did very well with was we had a tiered structure in terms of number of deals closed in a certain period of time meant that they would increase their commission. So we had a tier 1, tier 2. And let's say tier 1 was 7-day period, but if within that 7-day period you went over a threshold of getting 4 deals, well, instantly now our commissions go up. Now, seeing what my data looked like, seeing how many times it took for us to get a meeting with somebody, to make an offer to somebody, I knew my data pretty well. And it was very clear as day is that because I built a compensation structure that allowed for them to do better if they closed more deals in a single week, it meant that they were actually holding deals back because they wanted that bigger commission structure, which overall is just hurting the overall company. Like if a deal is ready to close, you know what I'm saying? So that is why having a data decision as a part of that is why having data is so important when you're going through this process. So I hope you learned a thing or two today about some of the KPIs that you should be considering when hiring a new sales rep. If you think I missed something or you have a question, please be sure to drop it below. Remember, stay curious, sell more.